Hi, my name is Rama, and I will be doing the second part of this presentation on Islam, or clothing in Islam. So I'm going to go ahead and skip to right over here. Sorry, it takes a second to load. Okay, so I feel like it's important to point out the two different sects that are part of Islam before we start talking about the differences in clothing between each of those two. So the two major sects in Islam are Sunni and Shia. So for Sunnis, they believed that the Prophet's closest companion should be who they are following, and in this case, it was Abu Bakr. And they mainly rely on the Sunnah, which is a record of the teachings and sayings of the Prophet Muhammad, to guide their actions. Whereas for Shia, they followed the Prophet's cousin and son-in-law, whose name is Ali, and they mainly relied on their ayatollahs, whom they see as a sign of God on earth. So on the map to the right, you can see the yellow part is demonstrating where all the Sunnis are in most of the Middle Eastern area, and then the red part is showing where the Shias are. So for similarities in Islamic dress, both sects dress very modestly, which is just part of a cultural understanding of the Islamic faith. And women are oftentimes seen as wearing the hijab, which is something that you probably have seen out in America. And for all Muslim males, whether Sunni or Shia, the wearing of gold or silk is forbidden, whereas for women, this is allowed. And Islamic dress is not ornate or expensively decorated as well. So, sorry, 1 second. Okay, yes. So on the left, you can see the different types of head coverings worn by Muslim women. So just keep this in mind while we go through the rest of the slides. All right, so for Islamic dress in Sunnis, some Sunni scholars emphasize covering of all body, including the face, in public, whereas some scholars exclude the face from the hijab. And differences in dress code is more obvious among clerks. So Sunni clerks in Iraq wear a black turban, and the white headpieces they do wear look markedly different from the Shia versions. So you can see on the right, there are just different examples of hijabs that are worn across the world by women, and you can see the different ways that they are wearing it. For example, in the bottom left corner, you can see that it's kind of wrapped around without covering the entirety of the hair, whereas some are more conserved, such as the top left corner picture or the bottom right corner picture as well. So for Islamic dress in Shia Muslims, Shias believe that the hijab must cover around the perimeter of the face and up to the chin. And in some countries like Iran, Shia women must wear a chador, which is a loose, typically black robe covering her body from head to toe. And you can see this on the left side of the slide where there are the two women wearing the chadors. And Shia women tend to pin the veil on the left side to differentiate themselves from Sunni Muslims. And Shias are more likely to wear hijabs than Sunni Muslims. However, women decide whether to wear one based on the dictates of their mosque or their community, or their conscience. So it is a very much choice-like behavior. And Shia holy men wear either a black or a white turban and a robe. So diversity between countries. Different ways of dress and unique pieces of accessories can be found to be very diverse among the various Middle Eastern countries. So though a lot of the countries share many similarities in that a lot of women wear hijabs and the modesty is also a very common role in Islam, there are different types of pieces that are worn across different countries in the Middle East. And so on the right side, you can see a map of the MENA countries. And again, MENA just references Middle Eastern, North African countries that include Islamic following. And in the in our textbook, the author stated that they were on a flight to Bangkok from Saudi Arabia, and he described how there was a big difference between the way in which women were dressed in Saudi Arabia while boarding the flight and how they dressed after having boarded the flight. It was said that Saudi couples boarded the flight, the men mostly in good quality leisure suits or following white robes, but the women in extremely modest, shapeless clothing covering their whole bodies, including the faces of some. And then on the side you can see that there was another quote. He said, "Some of the women repaired to the restrooms where they changed into stylish, in some cases low-necked, Western clothing in preparation for the enjoyable journey with cocktails." So, though there was a difference in the way in which they were dressed, they still conformed fully with civilized international standards of proper public behavior. And Muslim men and women in public places generally dress and behave modestly and with sensitive regard for their Muslim dignity as well as their rights and feelings of others, whether they're Muslim or not. So now I'm going to explore just a few places across MENA countries. So the Levant area include countries such as Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria. And so Western clothes predominate this area, and many local garments and attires that can be seen in the cities themselves as well as the countryside. So on the left side of the slide, you can see a man wearing a Palestinian keffiyeh, which is the thing that is wrapped around his head. So another part of MENA countries is the Gulf. So these include countries such as Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, the United Arab Emirates, Oman, Yemen, and Sudan. And so all men in the Gulf usually use a long white tunic called a dishdasha, which helps keep the body cool in the heat of the region. And then tunic worn with short shul trousers and a gutra. And women wear wide, long robes called abayas. And so you can see on the right side that is an example of an abaya. In North African countries such as Morocco, Tunisia, Algeria, Libya, and Egypt, many working men in Cairo wear a jilbab, which is the long, loose-fitting gown, sometimes in a combination with the keffiyeh, a turban-like headcloth or cotton skullcap, and older women may wear a burqa and a bedle, a clad headscarf and following dress. So you can see on the left side, there's a picture of a woman wearing the Algerian karakou, and then on the right side, it's an Algerian men wearing a gandora. So, in terms of continuity, the choice of a certain item of clothing assumes a fundamental moral value, and there's a difference between wearing a hijab and not wearing one for women. And clothes remain a fundamental element in the cultural identity of each country in the Middle East. Some countries have followed Western footsteps in terms of fashion, namely the Levant and North Africa, while others are still holding on tight to their traditional attires like Saudi Arabia or Yemen. But again, across the MENA countries, you can see this common feature of trying to keep modesty and the identity of the Islamic faith within the community. However, as we saw with the different types of areas in MENA countries, there is this sort of diversity that comes with their unique ways of dress for each of the countries as well. So here are just a list of some of the references that we used for this presentation, and that is it. Thank you so much.